everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Nollywood Filmmakers Mart Podcast. My name is Matilda, and today I have a very special guest with me who needs no introduction, filmmaker, director, Biodun Stephen. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me, ma'am.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, ma'am. So I'll just dive right into the questions. I've seen your work, I've seen your films, and what just stands out to me each time I watch anything from you is your keen eye for storytelling and how authentic you are with these stories that you tell. I would just like to know, where does that come from?
Oh, where does it come from? I think that I have come over the years to value human experiences. And I started writing when I started as a writer, it was because I had a crush on a boy. I was maybe 15. And of course, he was a taboo. So I created this imaginary relationship between myself and the boy, and sort of many times infused our day-to-day dialogue into the story. And I think from there on was where I knew the kind of stories I wanted to tell. I want to tell a story that every single person could connect, could relate. And how best to do that is to pull from my within, to pull from my own personal experiences, which is why a lot of my films, there's always a fragment of me, a fragment of somebody I know in the story, just sort of give it the authenticity that is required for the story.
Wow. Can I ask what happened with the...
We never dated. I think back then, you can't even say you have a crush on the boy, talk more being in a relationship. So definitely, after like SS2, I eventually got over that crush. But that was really when it began for me as a writer. It was from then on I started writing. And I think that some of my early writing was always about my crushes, my roommate. And pretty much that's how I started, really.
Wow. I want to ask, what are the elements that have to be in place for you to be able to tell a story as authentically and as immersive as possible?
If you're asking if there's a ritual that I go through, there's really none. To be honest, I can write even at a party. Oh. Yes, it just really needs to be that the moment is like the hour has come, and then I pick up a tab. For instance, as a film like Sista, when I wrote it, I was filming The Wildflower. And I was writing at the same time. And I remember him said, "What are you?" I said, "I'm writing this amazing story." And so every time there's a cut and they're setting up, I'm writing. So it's as long as there's somewhere for me to pull from. Once I'm able to piece the entire story together in my head, that's when I start writing. I never write when I don't have the complete story together. I need to have the beginning, the middle, and the end. And then I begin to just let my hands guide me towards that middle and eventually towards the end. So there's no specific writing. But I think that one of the key elements is there must be a muse for me. Whose story am I telling? And so many times there's always somebody. For every character, there is somebody that I'm looking at. And I begin to build the story using that person's framework. It doesn't have to be an actor. It can just be somebody that I know. So for instance, a film like Sista, it was my cleaner, Auntie Awa. We always discuss how she has 2 kids, putting them through university, and I see how hard she works. And so it was just looking at her and began to build. So I need to have one real person I'm looking at, and then I begin to use that person to sort of build the house from then on.
Wow. You said you were filming The Wildflower. Was it something about the set or what made the story occur to you in that moment? That story for Sista while on the set of Wildflower?
To be honest, there was nothing. It's seems like how I wrote Looking for Bami. I was filming Rofia Laurent, and I was just looking at Bimbo and I was like, wow, she's so talented, and it just occurred to me, how about we write a story about a girl looking for her dad and from a different background and her father's, and like that. And I just sat them in a corner and I'm like, oh yeah, put the block, yeah, let's light the scene. And then I'm writing it. And so that was it. It's not like there's any special, every time people are like, there's no special moment. I just think that it's something that you think about over time. And then 1 minute, it just clicks. And then I begin to write.
You really sound like a moving train. You're always on the move. What is the common misconception? Maybe not common, but what's one misconception about filmmaking that you would like to address?
That a small cast does not mean it's a low budget film. And I say it because I've suffered from it so many times. When I wrote my first film, The Visit, and I made that film, it was 4 people, 1 location. And there was nothing cheap about that film. Not the cast, not the equipment, not the location. There was nothing cheap about it. And so this is something that people always, that's misconception that, oh, it's a small film, so it's low budget. No. And I think that the concept of low budget is so subjective that what are the things you consider that makes a film low budget, you know? So I think that people should understand that a small cast, a small location doesn't make the film low budget. Sometimes you spend tons of naira.
Can you share an example of when you had to, you know, make a maybe not last minute, but just like a change, maybe like because of budgets, because of a logistical problem, challenge? Just an instance where you had to make changes because of that.
Okay, so I think that many times, I'm trying to go. I think the one moment that comes to my mind is Breaded Life. We were set, when we wrote Breaded Life, the character for Todowede was not Todowede. She was a Yoruba girl, just a normal Ibadan girl. But Bimbo and I had done Rofiate Loloron. We had done Looking for Bami. And I just thought, if I want to use Bimbo again, it'd be like a boring thing if she's going to be the same thing. Yeah. So Bimbo really had 2 weeks. And I said to her, let's go Egun. Let's make you Egun. You know? And she had 2 weeks to look for somebody to teach her, learn the traits. And that was it. All I had was the name, Todowede Stewedo, because that was the name of my secondary school mates when I was in JS2, and I never forgot that name. And so I just said, you know what, let's go, let's do Ego. Can you mimic Ego? She's like, oh, Mark Auntie Basira, she will teach me. And pretty much that's, so he was pretty much just redesigning the film because I just thought, let us do something else that Bimbo hasn't done before.
It's interesting that you mentioned culture now, like you sort of segued into it, and you've done projects where we've seen different cultures. How do you go about presenting these stories and these cultures in them in the most authentic way possible, and while also bearing in mind, you know, the need for respecting cultures and just being authentic?
I think that the most important thing in terms of culture is what are you doing with it? I try to celebrate it every time. I try to celebrate language in my film, which for every film, they must speak a dialect. It has to be Igbo, Yoruba, they must speak something. So for instance, a film like Sista, it was written in English, apart from Sista's character. But the infusion of Auntie Jemima being Hausa was not even in the framework of the script. It was when we casted Tokwe, and I said, Tokwe speaks really good Hausa. And I said, you know what, can you do the Hausa accent just to sort of elevate the film? And, you know, in that moment, you were celebrating the culture and not castigating the culture. And that's what I try to do every time. You know, dialect is beautiful. When you hear people speaking, when we're having conversations, very, very few times do you not segue into Yoruba or into your local dialect. You would, and then you come right back.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, those kind of dialogues, when you're watching it, that is why I wanted to. You know, we can always just say, sometimes say, Abi, Shomo. Then we go right back to the English because that's how we talk.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we were just trying to look for how to better authenticate the storytelling, better presented visually, appealing. It's really where it all started from.
I like that you spoke about, you know, authenticate and, you know, the pace of storytelling, telling the story rather. And I would like to ask about, you know, your pacing of stories. And it's so distinct, anything that is your work. I want to know how you work on pacing, because most times there is a time limit that or time frame that you're working with, right? How do you pace the stories without, you know, sacrificing the nuance and the depth of the stories that you're telling?
I think it all starts from when you're writing. When I'm writing, my major focus is my first 15 pages. Okay. The first 15 pages is the film. That is when you get to lock in the audience and everything. And so that first 15 minutes is very crucial. I've also, when I'm writing, I always say every 15 minutes, something must happen to take us into the next 15 pages. And that's really much my format when I'm writing. You know, except maybe when I'm maybe character building. For a film like Big Love, we had to build the love for you to understand the bigness of what Anana was going to do eventually. I've also come to realize that Nigerians, sometimes we are not patient when we're watching. But that should not, yes,
the thing
to happen. But I think that for any true artist, that should not be your concern. Eventually, the audience will appreciate and learn that this is who you are. It's how people have come to appreciate that every time I write a film, it does not have to have a good ending. it must have a realistic ending. Or it can have an ending that I really would like to use as a message. So if you look at, and I keep borrowing from my films. So if you look at Sista again, when she chose to go with her children abroad, some people misconstrued, because it was abroad. No, it was that Sista will never ever leave her kids, not even with the father of the children. So she would halt her life and go. If it was abroad that the kids wanted to go, I would go with them. It also did not mean that he had to marry. He was going to leave that woman and marry her. No. So I think that, how did we get to this question again?
Pacing.
Yes. So for me, every 15 pages when you're writing the script, there must be something. And so also even when you're making the film, with film, 15 pages is longer. So you have to look like every 10, 12 minutes, something must occur that sort of links you into. And then, when we're filming, I many times let the actors freestyle, do the ad-libbing. And when we're cutting down, we know the parts to take, to at least to still keep the audience going.
This might seem a little overwhelming or maybe like generic in a way, but I would just like to know, and when I say generic, I mean you might find it common across your projects, but I'd like to know is there that one project, or it doesn't have to be one, just the project that's helped you transform creatively as a filmmaker? And that's why I said it might seem like
there
so
are.
overwhelming.
I think that every project that I do, my approach to every film I make is, this is the film that will blow me. This is the film that will change my life. And so every time I'm working on a film, it's the exact same way. Is there a particular project that transformed my life? I think there are so many films that have changed my life and introduced me to the audience, in a new way. So with The Visit, and then there was Obi's Voice, and there was Tiwa's Baggage, and they were Looking for Bami, and then there was Breaded Life. I think Breaded Life, by the time Breaded Life came out and people were talking about, who is this woman? I was like, I'll be here. Where have you been? Where have you people been? I'll be here. And then Sista, like 2 years after, Sista then followed, and be like, oh my God, who is this person? And I'm like, but I've been here. And I think that every time they say, who is this person? It makes me realize that they don't know you. So it means that I can never rest on my oars. I still need to keep working. But I think that one of the most humbling compliment for me is when I've come to realize people understand my storytelling now. They understand my style and they appreciate the style. Yeah, I think that for me, it's a job well done, because you spend so much time building and building something, and people have said, this is the way she is, and we love her this way. And I think that is, for an artist, it takes a while. It takes a lot for audience to sort of respect who you are, as an artist, as a storyteller. And people have come to really sort of embraced my style.
Do you feel like the you that people know is the you want them to know?
I mean, as long as it relates to my work, that's okay. I'm very different from my work. I'm totally two different people outside of work, but as it relates to my work, because that's what I'm putting out there, my work. It's not about my personal life, it's about my work. And as it relates to my work, I think that people have come to understand that I'm hardworking, I'm very passionate about my storytelling, and I have a distinct approach to how I make film. And that's it.
Okay. There's this question I like to ask filmmakers whenever I have a conversation with them, because I know a lot of people have the dream story they want to tell. And I would like to know yours, if you have one.
Hey, dream story. The only dream story is that a story that the entire world would connect to. And and I think that even as a writer, as a storyteller, I think that one of the shocking films for me that has always shocked me is Sista, because if you ask me, I just wrote it, I didn't see it as anything. I didn't think that it would take over the social media space and everybody was talking about it. But one of the things that I celebrate about is that it's a global theme everywhere in the world. If you change the dialogues to French, change it to Indian, everybody would connect to the story. So I think that my next dream would be to make a film yet again that has global appeal. That it's not about it being a box office hit. It is that every tribe that watches that film sees themselves in it.
You mentioned about the misconception that people have that is a small story doesn't mean it has a small budget. What has been the most challenging situation you've been in logistically when you are making your film?
Where do we begin? Where do we begin? I think that Nollywood in itself, situated in this country, is challenging making a film. Right now, there's no light. We're running on gen, which is probably affecting your sound. So we have, it is, I wouldn't say light nightmare. It is a challenge that we're constantly fighting every day. The logistics is a lot. You can't put your cameras just anywhere now on the road. There's the area boy part of it. There's a financial part of it, trying to tell the stories that you want to tell. There's also the fact that not every Nigerian is open to having Nollywood in their spaces, and I do agree that many times we are like a virus. When we come into a place, we take over the space and we scare people, open up their spaces to us. So the challenges, filming in Nigeria as a whole, it's broad, but I think that's what makes us as Nigerians, our story is very unique, is how we have managed to circumvent those challenges and how we have many times turned those challenges into wins for us. And many times when you're trying to fight, so for instance, I'm making a film and it's raining. We've had it done with Megan. I said, you know what, let's write it into the scene. Let's take a recording of the rain, write it into the scene. We had a situation where we're filming and there was no power and our neighbor was running her gen and she was refusing to turn off the gen. And, I said, you know what, let's re-strategize. Turn off the lights. Let's make it look as if there's no light. Let them tie wrapper and let them complain about the noise of the generator. And you have to, and I think that's one of the beauty of Nigeria is it helps you to, how can I creatively manage this shortcoming, rather than saying, rather than complaining. I don't believe in complaining. I'm like, you know what, how can we better manage the situation?
Well, how does this play into your post-production because I've seen a glimpse of how you are on set now. How does this play into post-production?
If there is a need for us to do an ADR, we definitely would do an ADR if there is a need. Again, thankfully, technology has advanced such a way that there are things that you can use to sort of clean up your sounds and all of that. Yeah. But that does not mean that, if there are some scenes that are really bad and important, you may have to redo them again. Or you make a decision on set not to shoot that scene and wait for the right time to shoot it, particularly if you know that you cannot wing it. Thank God for post. Post always allows you the flexibility of, we can do it again, or you can just take the scene out if you know that it does not move the story forward.
What's one thing you feel will make the logistic challenge in Nigeria, Nollywood particularly, better?
Film village, filming under very conducive in an atmosphere where, is built for film. You're not worried about sound. You're not worried about many things, sound studios. I think that if we have a proper film video, proper sound studio, I think that it'll be easy. Of course, it then poses a new wave for us as filmmakers, having to build sets, because many of us are not used to building sets if it's not epic. But people are doing it now. This film that we're making, most of the sets were constructed in the studio. We utilize the spaces because, again, control. You want control. You want to be able to, because many times you're making a film, you're looking at what's the color scheme of my film. And if you go and rent locations, you're limited. You either have to spend money to repaint and paint it back the way they want it if they don't like the color. Yeah. So how about if you have a space that allows you to be able to, you can manipulate to whatever you want,
Well, all right. So I would like to know, what are the tools and methods that you use to ensure that everyone is on the same page when you are, approaching a new project?
I think conversations. It's important that to let the crew and the cast understand my vision. what I expect from my interpretation. And I'm also a very open door policy kind of person. I welcome ideas because I believe that nobody has a monopoly of great ideas. And we just have those conversations continuously. I think that filmmaking now is beyond just get the script and shoot. We need to design the film, the entire film. How is it going to look? Why is this happening? What is the actor going to wear? Are they wearing a color? Why? We want to question all those choices and to be sure that we are all on it. It's important that the entire crew sort of connects with my vision, and then we can all build up, from there. So it's always conversations, endless meetings, endless phone calls, and then we see the drawing board and we go to town.
Does that also factor into how you make changes along the way, especially when unexpected situations arise?
My crew have come to, my DP will say something like, you know what, the film, the script, don't worry. And CB keeps rewriting the script as we are going on. Because sometimes you are in a situation where something better happens on set. Maybe a character, an actor interprets something and you're like, you know what, let's I like this. Let's do a few changes. Or we were looking for a particular look. So I'll give an example. We just made a film a few weeks ago. It's called Alecheno. And the character was supposed to be an electronics, in fact, we started from spare parts dealer. And then, but the little boy, his co-actor loved electronics. I was like, there's no connection there. Okay. Then we moved on to, let's make him a spare part dealer. Then we got his house. And I realized that as a spare part, as an electronics dealer who brings in stuff, it means that the best of the best will be in your house. We don't have the best of the best in this house. I'm not sure I can get a house that has the best of the best electronics. So let us change his job to let him be doing something else. And that's really how, and we kept on thinking on the go, because I kept on, in fact, this John was a night before we were going to start filming. I looked at the set, it was beautiful, but I kept looking at it. There's something wrong. This TV, this is not the best of the best. If this man deals in electronics, he would have the best in his home, which means his sound system, his TV, his kitchen appliances will be top notch. This house is lovely, but this is not top notch. So this cannot be the job that he does. It is so easy for people to just neglect that tiny little detail. Very easy. And
it's so interesting to me now because your eye for detail. I would like to know how because your films delve into, even regardless whether it's comedy or whatever, there's still a way you delve into heavy topics. And we live in the African society and we are always quick to embrace emotions of joy, happiness. If it's and everybody will talk about it. But when it comes to negative or dark emotions, we tend to shy away from talking about them, like grief, just family dynamics that are complicated. But these are things that you explore in your films. I would like to know how you bring your keen eye for detail into showing these deeply emotional responses through your characters and just how you tell your story.
So before I went into the film fully, I used to work on radio. And I had a show called Whispers. And Whispers is like a life-sharing experience platform. We talk, we share, we listen. And majorly, the core is to celebrate the victor of the situation and not the victim. And so we present very heavy topics on a bed of comedy. Because I think that when you realize that you can laugh about it, that people are able to open up and talk about, me too, it happened to me. And that inspired how I really wanted to convey messages in my film. So every time you watch a Biodun Stephen film, you will go through all the emotions. You will laugh, you would cry, you would go through you get angry, because that is how we are as human beings. And I think that even for and I've been very, very blessed to work with a number of amazing actors, some of who have seen my work. And so when they are coming, I always tell my actors, you need to come abandoned, come empty. Don't come like, I have it figured out. Come empty because come because you want to be filled up and you want to let yourself go to the character, because if you believe in the character, and I'm an empath, so it makes it very easy for me when I'm directing. People ask me, how do you get people to like? I said, I'm an empath. If I'm watching you and I believe you, every single thing you are feeling, I'm feeling. I'm crying with you, I'm laughing with you, every single thing. And I think that is probably the secret of how I'm able to get actors, because I said, I don't believe it. I need to feel exactly. Even when I'm writing and I'm mouthing the dialogues, I'm crying. So I know that if I'm crying when I'm typing those moments, I know that those words, when a good actor takes it and delivers it, we are all going to be feeling exactly how I felt when I was writing.
Well, do you have, people talk about filmmaking and, rules guiding making a film and all of these things. Are there rules that you find limiting that you just find yourself breaking whenever you are making a film?
I think one of the fascinating directors I have admired from afar is Quentin Tarantino. He breaks every law in filmmaking. I think that it's good to know the rules, but never ever allow yourself to be inhibited by the rules. Sometimes they will say, oh, the angles cannot cross. But if it crosses and the shot looks good, it go cross like that too. You accept it like that. I think the rules are there to help us, to give us a framework.
Yeah.
But we should never be afraid to break it in the name of the art. So I don't have any, to be honest, I just sit down and I imagine this is how I want this. All I ask is, DP, do you think we can achieve this thing if we do it this way? Say, let's try. Sometimes we go try, go work, we go live back. Sometimes we try, it looks amazing. Sometimes we do it, it's nonsense. But what is bad is you're not trying.
From your responses earlier, you said how people know the you that is your work that you want them to know and see. But again, a lot of your stories revolve around things in your personal life, like you spoke about Sista, the characters, people you know. Should I say, how do you draw the line, or to what extent is your personal life reflective?
Like I said, fragments. Something that maybe I've dealt with in the past, a joy, a high, a low, or an ugly. I just, put it in there sometimes because I feel like I've come to realize many times you're not the only one walking this path. So yeah, but the film, the most important thing is the film is not about me. It's about human experiences. If I've experienced it, somebody else has experienced it, and somebody else will connect. When I was on radio doing Whispers, it was always important that we're speaking about behind closed door issues and bringing it to light. And that's what I wanted to do. It really helped me understand, for me, my purpose as a filmmaker. My purpose as a filmmaker is really, it's largely to entertain, but primarily to enlighten. To let it be a safe space for people to see themselves, hold up a mirror and say, I'm not alone. To talk about issues about sibling rivalry, and people pick up the phone after seeing my film and they call their sister or their brother. Or a film like Sista, and then you call your mom and you realize that I need to send my mother a bouquet of roses because she don't try. Or you imagine a film like Picture Perfect and you realize that area where that parks your car, maybe tomorrow I'll say hi. It just helps you to value people more. And that for me is what I try to do with the films. It just helps you to look at it again and be grateful for where you are.
Have you ever had, I'm sure you had, but what is one remarkable encounter you've had with someone, an audience that has seen your work?
Plenty. Plenty. I've had people call me crying. I've had people call me pray. I think it's the prayers I appreciate the most. There are people holding me and praying. Very recently I was at a trade fair, and this woman just called me, you're Biodun Stephen. Oh my God, let me pray for you. And she prayed with me, and I thought, though, there's nothing like a word like that thing. That's rewarding. When somebody says, I watched Joba and I was completely blessed. I watched this and, I reached out to my brother. I watched ITK, Introducing the Kujus. And you know what? I just had to call my sister that, let's do that family reunion now. That is job done for me. That there's no plaque greater than that.
You are known for comedy, yeah, it's your mark, but what is one genre that I know you don't seem like the type that will be boxed. You can decide to do, whatever. But what's the one genre that you would like to explore?
Yeah, horror.
Why did you say it like that?
Maybe I want to see what I'm able to. I'm really good because I'm good at scaring myself. I really don't need anybody to scare me. I can scare myself. I just need my mind to be at work, and my God, I'm paralyzed in fear. Maybe horror, but I'm very happy doing drama. I'm very happy that my drama is centered around family and human dynamics. I'm very happy there because I think that the life communication that we have is not from action film. The communication of life is from human to human interaction.
Yeah.
And how about we unknot those complications? There's so much to unknot there, but if I wanted to diversify, be a horror sharp, yeah, but not action film. Yeah, horror.
What's one thing you know now that you wish the younger you had known when you were starting out as a filmmaker?
I'm not sure. I'm someone with very, very few regrets. I believe that we're learning as we go.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure there's anything that I should have learned that I should learn. But I think that quickly, if I would say it would have been in secondary school, I should have done art and not science. So I would not have spent 3-5 years of my life doing food tech and science and all of that, only for me to come back to do arts.
So what does the future hold for you? Like, what can we expect?
Possibilities, great storytelling, more amazing films, and hopefully I think that to stay relevant as much as I can with relevant work.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. I really love that conversation. Okay, that was an amazing conversation with director Biodun Stephen. You can make sure to subscribe and follow us on our social media platform, and see you in the next one. Bye.